Hello, everyone. Welcome to blueandgold.com's recruiting update on YouTube. I'm Greg Ladke, along with blueandgold.com recruiting expert Mike Singer. On this episode, we're going to talk about the class of 2023 quarterback offers for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. But before we get into that, hit like on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff like this. But Mike, Notre Dame's offered 6 quarterbacks in the class of 2023. One of them's off the board, Malachi Nelson to Oklahoma, but there's 5 others that, as far as we know, Notre Dame still keeps in touch with. So let's go from West Coast to East Coast and start with Nico Iamaleava, Rivals 100 prospect. What do you think about him and the Irish?
First of all, great pronunciation, Greg.
Thanks.
I know that probably took you a few tries before we started recording, but first of all, for him as a prospect, 6'6", 205 pounds, he's definitely lean. He's a legit 6'5", 6'6". He's got a big arm, moves very well. There's going to be a common theme when we talk about these quarterbacks. They're all pretty tall and they all move well and they got strong arms. It certainly looks like Tommy Rees has a type when he's looking at these quarterback prospects. This young man, again, very athletic, great escapability, and a rocket arm. Talk to a source close to him. Those are the 3 main attributes that he had to describe Nico. I honestly think he's going to be one of these next great quarterbacks to come out of Southern California. You mentioned Malachi Nelson, who Notre Dame offered earlier this year, came off the board and committed to Oklahoma. He's going to be another one of them. But when you just think about Southern California quarterbacks, Greg, you know better than anybody, covering recruiting as long as you have, there's just so many great ones who have come out of there. And I would probably say most recent ones being, Bryce Young, DJ Uiagalelei, even though DJ's down a little bit this year. But Nico, big time player. I think when he gets a little bit more strength in his lower body, man, this kid is just going to be a freak of nature. As far as his recruitment goes, Greg, visited Notre Dame for the Purdue game, received his offer before kickoff. He's discussed returning, coming back to campus for the USC game. That's not locked in just yet. Definitely think Notre Dame will be in it for the long haul. USC will be a team to keep an eye on. What head coach they hire will be interesting. And then, from coast to coast, he's interested in a ton of schools from, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ole Miss, out to schools in the Pac-12.
Our next Notre Dame offer, one I think is really interesting on film, but also a tough evaluation because of where he's from. Avery Johnson from Mays, Kansas. It's a town outside of Wichita, Kansas. 5,200 people live in that town, Mike Singer, but they do have 2 high schools, but he's pretty dynamic on film. He's fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. So you talked about he's tough to evaluate. That's why it was so important for Notre Dame to see him in person. So he camped at Notre Dame at the end of July, and Tommy Rees offered him while he was still on campus. Similar traits as Nico, the guy we just watched. He's tall, he's lean. You see him running the football there, very athletic, strong arm as well. Like I said, threw for Notre Dame at the end of July for that barbecue cookout event that they had at the end of the month, and really impressed the coaching staff. And like you mentioned, Greg, doesn't play the best, competition in Kansas, but that's where the kid lives. I can't fault him for playing that competition. So what should he do against it? Dominate it. And that's what he does at Mays High School in Kansas. And with his recruitment returning to Notre Dame for a visit for the USC game, reported that news last week at blueandgold.com. I really feel like if Notre Dame pushes for Johnson, the Irish will have a great chance. Schools in the Big Ten, Big 12 in the surrounding area will be a big factors here. The Iowa schools, the Kansas schools, Arkansas is another school that Johnson likes a lot. And this 4-star prospect is also very high on Notre Dame.
Next one, Jackson Arnold plays for Denton Guyer. He's got a big game this weekend against Allen High School, and the number 3 prospect, who's a defensive edge player in the country for 2023, and David Hicks. And someone we've seen. We've gone down and seen Jackson Arnold in person. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, Hicks, another big time Notre Dame target, a 5-star player. And we've had Tyler Horka go down to see these Geyer prospects, Arnold's teammates with Ryan Yates and Peyton Bowen, two big Notre Dame DB targets in the 2023 class. Before we just started watching his tape here, it listed him as a 4-star prospect. That's pretty recent. I hadn't even seen that until you just popped that on the screen. He was listed as unranked for a while, and I think it's well deserved. He camped at Notre Dame over the summer in June. Sources could not stop raving about him, Greg. They absolutely loved this kid in what he did. But the staff wanted a little bit more time before offering him, and they did so early in August. Similarly to Steve Angeli, Angeli's Notre Dame's quarterback commit in 2022 class didn't play as much as a sophomore, wasn't a starter. Same with Arnold. I believe it was a Texas A&M commit, was the quarterback for Geyer last season. So he is now the quarterback, and he certainly looked great this season, leading a big time program. I do believe of the quarterbacks that we're talking about in this video, he's the shortest, but he's still at least 6'1", 6'2". So he's, he's not 5'10", 5'11". He's at least Tyler Buckner's height. If Notre Dame pushes here, I do believe that they will land Arnold, Greg. He's told me flat out, this is a dream school for me. This is my biggest offer up to date, and he will be visiting Notre Dame at the end of October too.
All right, Arch Manning, the number one prospect in the nation for 2023. He doesn't give away much about schools. I think people feel Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss with the connections there, Texas. Where does Notre Dame fit in?
Yeah, Greg, Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, Alabama seem to be the schools that he's talking about the most. And then there's like a second tier, maybe a third tier, however you want to look at it, of Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Stanford, schools that Manning has said in some interviews, yeah, I would like to take a visit there, but actually is not taken that yet. So until he does visit Notre Dame, this is a long shot. But I'll tell you, Greg, it's a lot of fun to talk about Arch Manning because he is quite the prospect. I believe his uncles Peyton and Eli have even said that Arch is going to be the best quarterback in the family, which is obviously quite the claim. The hype behind this young man, Greg, I've never seen anything like this in 8.5 years covering college football recruiting, which is a pretty decent sample size. It feels like a LeBron James, a Zion Williamson, one of those big time generational talents on the basketball court. That's the level of hype that Arch Manning's recruitment has. And he does play his recruitment close to the vest. Like, you don't get this young man on the phone to talk about his recruitment. You got to go to NOLA to talk to him. And it seems like every couple of days I'm seeing a new interview with Arch Manning from some recruiting website because everyone goes to see Arch Manning because there's so much interest with this young man. Quick release, moves well, great size, obviously the great bloodlines. Greg, this young man is special.
Yeah, and it's worth reiterating. I marked it on the video, and we'll loop it again here. But this is his sophomore year film we're watching, and
Wow.
I just cut this morning, and it's his decision making is really quick, and he is super accurate, no doubt about that. Mike, I know you're a big follow the visits type of guy in terms of how you cover recruiting and where you predict kids may go. You can see the Rivals readers believe Michigan is most at play for Dante Moore, but he's also very familiar with Notre Dame and its campus.
Yeah, follow the visits, whether that's a young man where he's visiting schools, but also where college coaches, where do they go during the bye week? Where are they going to go during evaluation periods? This week, Brian Kelly and Tommy Rees are expected to go to Detroit Martin Luther King to see this prospect. That's big. And he's visited Notre Dame once in June, once in July, and just for the Cincinnati game, he's close friends with Carnell Tate, who's Notre Dame's number one receiver target, at least in my opinion, in the 2023 class. Tommy Rees would be absolutely ecstatic to have Moore and Tate in the class. Notre Dame battling the likes of Penn State, Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State. That's what I would say is the top contenders. He also likes some schools down south, but this kid's destined to play in the Big Ten or at Notre Dame. I've seen him in person a couple of times at camps. Looked really good, but on tape, he looks even better than in shorts and t-shirts, which is what you want. Like, you want the kid to be a gamer. And I think he's just got an it factor. He's an excellent leader. Believe he's been starting since his freshman season, so he's played in a ton of big games in Superb competition in Detroit. He's big, strong arm, coached very well. Tommy Rees, Brian Kelly want this young man bad.
All right, Mike, I'm going to put you on the spot. You have 5 players that we mentioned are in play. They all look great on film to me, but who do you think Notre Dame may ultimately end up with in this class?
Yeah, I'll give you like my top two, at least in my opinion. Manning, I think Notre Dame is. No, I'm kidding. I don't think
Yeah.
Manning's going to Notre Dame, but I think Dante Moore is, in my opinion, the top of the guy board mixed with like most realistic. I think Notre Dame, in talking about following the visits, he's been to Notre Dame more than any of these other prospects. And he just has a really close relationship with Tommy Rees. The big thing is, will the Detroit Ann Arbor poll, like how real will it be for him to want to stay close to the Wolverines? His quarterback's coach is a former Michigan quarterback. The exact quarterback is escaping me as we record this, but there's just a lot of pull there. But if he's going to leave Detroit, I believe, and in the state of Michigan, I believe it will be Notre Dame. Then the second guy I would say is Jackson Arnold. The more that he keeps playing football, I think the more the Notre Dame staff is going to be impressed with him. He's going to visit at the end of the month. Does he want to push up his timeline? We will see. But from what I've gained in talking to Arnold and various sources, he seems very high on the Fighting Irish. But to be honest with you, Greg, outside of Manning, I could see any of that group we talked about in this video committing to Notre Dame. There's also another quarterback that I think Notre Dame could offer, Chris Vezzina in Alabama. Irish staff really liked him from what he threw, or for how he threw for the staff in June. And yeah, I think Notre Dame could offer him and then lead to a commitment down the road. So good group there. And then Vezzina could be another good one.
Might seem like we're looking too far ahead, but with quarterback recruiting, that's what colleges have to do. That's the way it works now, and it seems like Notre Dame is in a good spot that they're gonna get someone who's pretty darn good in the class of 2023. They've certainly done the legwork. So, thank you everyone for watching. Hit the like button on this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Mike Singer, you're the best. Thank you for all of your expert information. Stay tuned to our channel here on YouTube. We've got a lot more coming.